Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Red Raiders pour it on. Bill Self taps, and Darion Williams decides not to miss. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers joining today, and you're getting $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you this morning, my man, and basking in the glow of let me just double check it, 29-point win over the sixth-ranked team in the nation. Tech downs the Jayhawks. So ugly. Bill Self tried to catch the early flight home, and I don't blame him. And I'm going to go back and check yesterday's episode because I'm pretty sure we said this is exactly how we draw it up. A drubbing of Kansas, the likes of which we haven't seen since, 2019. And what'd you do that year? Again, there are a lot of things for us to go back and check, but a lot of fun from United Supermarkets Arena, one of the best ball games of the year, environment-wise, no doubt about that. And one of the best things that we have ever seen from a basketball player in a Red Raider uniform, of course, we'll get to with Darion Williams, man. Just a whole lot to take in and a whole lot to smile about in the 806 today.
Hey, you opened up a can on those boys. I mean, and you're right. I wasn't sure what to expect. So as the day plays out yesterday, you know, you're trying to determine what's real and what's not from who's available on their end of things. We had talked about that some yesterday. And, then, okay, so it's reported that Kevin McCullough's not going to play. There was another young man by the name of Jamari McDowell that was sick, is a bit player for them, doesn't play a ton, but he was going to be out as well. But I do hear mid-afternoon, Kevin McCullough, he went through shoot-around. He went through, a lot of the stuff. And then, hey, man, DeJuan Harris, he looked fine, going through his stuff. And so you're like, okay. And I think there was even some sentiment from the Tech standpoint. Hey, we kind of hope that Kevin plays just to keep our guys like locked in and like, kind of almost like okay, better be ready tonight kind of deal.
Yeah, on edge.
Exactly. I think that's a better way to phrase it for sure. So anyway, but then you get in the game, and the game starts, and obviously Kevin McCullough's not playing, and I just like Kansas is like. When you have Johnny Furphy out there, KJ Adams, and Hunter Dickinson, it's a tough matchup for Texas Tech. And I think you saw for the very first time them play Robert Jennings and Warren Washington together because you're just trying to figure out a way to guard the length and height because Johnny Furphy is playing the 3-man. He's 6'9". And he's causing problems, not letting teams get their shots off or letting some of your guards get their shots off, and then he's kind of just shooting over your guys in the matchup he was on the end at the other end. But anyway, long story short, man, so as it got going, you're a little like, oh boy, this is, and then you were solely reliant on shooting threes. That's where almost all of your offense had come from. I think 21 of your first 24 points, it was all from 3-point makes, which, can you keep it up? And I'm looking down there, and that's what was my thought is like, okay, Bill Self is going to keep things the way they are because he just is got to be thinking there's no way they can keep it up. Well, it's true because they didn't, and they couldn't keep it up. But then they decided to beat Kansas in a different way in the second half. But, man, this was this is a good Kansas team. It's not the best Kansas team that I've ever seen. Far from it. It's just not. They miss McCullough. They miss having a guy – like an Abaji or a Wilson or, one of those dudes that have come through there that's like a combo guard that can just go for 20, 30 points on any given night. They've got a lot of youth. A lot of Kansas fans are very frustrated at Bill Self for this roster construction. And so it kind of all set up for Texas Tech to take advantage. And boy, did they, in a historic manner. This was, I had somebody tell me last night after the game, this was the worst loss by Kansas basketball in 74 years by a non-ranked opponent. Now, that's semantics a bit because Texas Tech was ranked last week. They do fall out of the polls after a fairly close loss to Baylor on the road and then a home win versus Central Florida. But they're so again, that's really in some ways not that big of a deal, but in other ways it's a massive deal. But you just kind of blew up on them, and yeah, Bill Self. I was here for the theater.
Yeah,
it's Robert Jennings and Hunter Dickinson pushing and shoving and wrestling down in the block, and Robert was not backing down. Robert Jennings is about 6 inches shorter than Hunter Dickinson. You're talking 6'6", 6'7" to like 7'1". That's the difference here. Well, Hunter Dickinson is one of the first team all Big 12 type guys. He's averaging 18 and 11 coming into the game. Second leading scorer in the Big 12, top leading rebounder. So they're wrestling around. He kind of is trying to post up. Well, where his height is, he just catches Robert right in the throat or the face. They call a foul. Bill Self doesn't like it. And here's the irony here. Because I did hear Bill Self talk about after the game that it's not an issue with the other team being favored or his team not being favored or whatever. It's the way the game is being called. He doesn't like the physicality. It just feels like that some things are getting away with it. And I think there's a general point that he can make that maybe Kelvin Sampson agrees with, Scott Drew agrees with, and all that. But I find it extremely ironic in the whole glass house thing that you would have any kind of problem with the officiating in somebody else's gym. Oh, Bill. I mean, Bill, I've seen the movie in your place a gazillion times. You don't get ejected in your building and have an issue with the way the game is being officiated in your building. But that whole thing makes me want to set myself on fire because, I mean, I just like, it makes my head explode just thinking about some of the travesties that have gone on to the opposition in Fog Allen. But I digress. He was sent to the locker room early from a not necessarily near as heated argument as you would have thought, but they just weren't going to have him. He was way out on the court, so I think he was kind of. While he said after the game, I wasn't trying to be ejected, but when you're like 15 feet onto the playing surface or the floor and not really backing down. But here was the best part.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the sports calendar keeps turning and the action never stops with America's #1 sports book and the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet hits. There are so many ways to spice up any action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. So get to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, official partner of the NBA.
But here was the best part. As he ventures off the floor and he's headed to the tunnel, you see who he was looking for? He was looking for Commissioner Yormark.
Yeah.
Because Commissioner Yormark had been sitting near the TV guys in the first half, and he was not there. He was sitting next to Regent Dusty Womble, but he wasn't there anymore. But Bill's looking over there like, and I would have loved to have seen what that interaction was like had it happened. I mean, that's like some WWE stuff, man. I would have been like, oh, yeah, what's going to be said here? Is somebody going to cost themselves some money? I mean, I don't know. But Brett wasn't there. He was up in a suite somewhere, I think, frustratingly so. But I was here for the drama, man.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I would be surprised if we didn't hear like a glass breaking later in the game, and here comes Bill Self back out of the tunnel to come jump in
That's
for
Bill
one.
Self's music.
That's right, for one more go around. Before we get to Darion Williams, Chris, I know that from an offensive standpoint, there were some really interesting things happening because that included another single-digit night for Pop Isaacs that you somehow yet still managed to win, this time by 29. But defensively, Texas Tech allows 28 in the first half from Kansas. I know the Jayhawks kind of just rolled over and died in the second, so 22 there. I will credit Kansas for just totally giving up the ghost, I guess, also. But I'm going to continue to credit some of Texas Tech's defensive effort, man. What were you seeing out there that they were able to do to make it so tough on the Jayhawks offensively?
Well, this is Calvin, this is back-to-back games where you've held teams under 60 points. I think what was Central Florida at 59 and now Kansas at 50. Central Florida is not a big-time scoring team. Kansas is. Kansas averages is got one of the most efficient, offenses that there is. They usually here's a couple things that you did. Kansas on average scores 40 points a game in the paint on average. You hold them to 20. I think that they assist on 20 baskets a game on average. And, yeah, you held them to 11 assisted baskets. But I think your physicality, I think, and Grant talked about this. He said, offense has carried us so, in so many games. And he goes, and my frustration with our defense is we just didn't have a defensive identity. I don't know if they could necessarily identify verbally like what their defensive identity is now, but I think they've kind of figured it out on what they there's a little bit more depth there. I think that you've got guys playing harder, and I think there's some, the physicality, and I think they're not worried about fouling you a little bit. Joe Toussaint gets physical. We saw Robert Jennings get physical. And so I think because – you mentioned your three guards again were 6 for 27. So it wasn't just Pop, but Joe 2 for 9. Chance was 3 for 9, and Pop was 1 for 9. So nobody had amongst those makes though there was some 3-point shots in there. But we'll get to the special performance in a second. But look at what you did to Kansas's guys. I mean, KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson were 3 for 22 combined. And I thought you pushed them off their spot. You didn't let them catch the ball where they wanted to. You were good with your pick and roll coverage. You forced KJ Adams to shoot, some floaters from the elbow, which those have usually been 7 feet in. And he's just kind of, much closer to the basket. I just thought you did a good job of not letting them, get, and especially so since this was such a quick turnaround. You don't have a ton of time to work on this opponent and all that. You just kind of had to man up. But I think that they have found something here defensively, and it's clearly working because, that's what, 55-ish points on average in the last 2 games that you've given up. That dog will hunt. You will win a lot of games. You do that. Now you got to go figure out a way to do it on the road. But
yeah, typically we'll hunt home and away, but the next away, pretty tough away. We'll get back to setting the table for Iowa State, of course, as the week rolls on. I just thought I was seeing a lot of great effort, to be honest with you. I mean, some of the help defense and the rotation and things like that, guys were straining, as we've heard before. There's no question that they were playing as hard as they could, and I think any defensive effort is going to have to start with that kind of thing, and Grant McCaslin seems to be getting it out of the guys there. And yeah, you mentioned Robert Jennings getting physical. How about getting physical? I don't know if the maintenance staff like this, but getting physical with the rim in the final few minutes of the game. Exploded out of his shoes on a fast break. I didn't see that coming necessarily from Hot Bob, but nonetheless, the boy could elevate, did it right there, and put a punctuation mark, an exclamation point there on the win for Texas Tech. But, of course, the story is all about, from an offensive perspective, Darion Williams, who gave us quite a treat. I don't know how many times you're going to see this, if you'll ever see this kind of thing again, particularly against a top 10 basketball team. But he goes for 30 as part of a double-double, does not miss a shot. And I'm not any basketball expert, but if you draw it up like that, you may have a successful night. Boys, let's just go out there and not miss one. 12 for 12 overall, 4 from 4 from beyond the arc, 2 from 2, 2 for 2 at the free throw line. And, man, just growing into such a Darion Williams fan this year like I have, and I know so many other Red Raider fans have, love seeing a guy like that have any success, really, much less 30 on perfect shooting against Bill Self and the Jayhawks. Happy for that guy.
It was a historic performance and one that we may never see again. You're right. And he was literally perfect because you look at plus minuses after the game, and like sometimes you focus on that, sometimes you don't look at it. But I mean, he was a plus 29. What'd you win by?
Yeah.
I mean, I was as impressed with his work on the defensive end, though. He had a big block shot. I just thought, he was as active and having to guard guys that are bigger than him. But I mean, this was just his night, man. And I, it wasn't luck. I mean, I've seen some Kansas faithful, bless your hearts, talk about, hey, he's not even that good. He hadn't even done anything all year. I mean, look it up. I mean, he's had, he may not go for 30 anymore this year, but I mean, he's certainly capable of doing his thing. But I just liked it because he was scoring at different levels. It wasn't just, this wasn't like a wide open 12 for 12 from the field. Some of these were contested. He's bouncing them in on occasion, but it was just like one of those nights. It goes back to like that whole, when you show up to the gym or arena or stadium, you're just not sure what you're going to get. Sometimes you see something for the first time. I mean, this was it. I mean, Bill Self wasn't ejected since back in Laramie, Wyoming, about 20-something years ago. It's the last time I think he was popped. Yep. Wow. He told the official, hey, I'm standing right next to me. You don't have to yell at me. And he's like, I'll yell if I want. And the guy threw him out for it. That's a true story. But it's never as a head coach at Kansas had he ever been ejected since last night. So there's your first. But then the Darion Williams, he goes down in the history books with guys like Will Flemings and some others as far as efficiency on any given night. But I think this is one of the only performances in college basketball history where somebody was perfect from the field and scored 30 plus and then had double-digit rebounds. Like when you add that caveat, I think this has never happened before. And from a unbelievably humble young man, he's just one of the guys, man. He wants to win. And that's why my favorite thing about him is that he got a night like this, because how many nights have we seen him sacrifice to either rebound or be the facilitator or whatever? And the beauty of it is on a night like this, you kind of needed it because your other guys weren't really shooting it well or scoring. I mean, for the fact that you got, because so many people think this team is Pop Isaacs and that's it. You're just not paying attention. But for you to beat the 6th ranked team in the country by 29 points and Pop to score 7 points, 10 below his average, speaks to how good some of these other pieces are, namely Darion Williams.
Well, I just think about some of the individual explosive days or nights that we've seen so far this year. Yep. And man, it really, I mean, because you're thinking about Pop Isaacs having some of those, of course. You're now thinking about Darion Williams having one of those. Obviously, Chance McMillan has had one of those. Warren Washington gets into a double-double mode here or there, though we haven't seen him just completely go off from a scoring standpoint. Kerwin Walton has had one of those. Joe Toussaint has had one of those. That kind of stuff, if you can get there, gets me excited about NCAA tournament time. When some of these guys get to cooking and you're playing games in such rapid succession, and you know that some of that en fuego status can carry on from game to game whenever you get in some of those tournament settings. Hopefully Texas Tech is going to be able to do enough work to get there and give themselves that chance. Before we get to Warren Washington and any update, but certainly also crediting his gutsy effort last night, I'm not going to take this for granted, so I'm going to continue to point it out, even though we're getting used to seeing this kind of thing. 8 turnovers for Texas Tech. I run into so many people now, Chris, what do you think about these Red Raiders? I think Grant McCasland can coach, and that is echoed back to me 10 times out of 10. And it's some of these little things, not to mention the effort or the defense or what you can do as far as spurring guys on to great offensive efforts or putting your guys in a position to have offensive success. But these details that have so quickly gotten turned around this year, again, I don't think can be taken for granted. Single-digit turnovers is always a special thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think most of the time, if you can just be kind of in a 10, 11, 12 range, you think, all right, we can mostly compete with that kind of number. But Grant McCaslin's team has gone well beyond that kind of standard.
There's other than Darion's night, there's two like team statistics that I think speak to, I mean, massive improvement for your basketball team as we have gone along.
First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply.
Other than Darion's night, there's two like team statistics that I think speak to, I mean, massive improvement for your basketball team as we have gone along. Because it wasn't, you don't have to look just too far back where the turnover was a problem. And then we've since been talking about steady improvement when they kind of turned the corner here over the last, month to 6 weeks. But, some of November and December was rather rough. And I think they've gotten a lot better as the year has gone along. But this was on the biggest stage to date. And I thought you were able to, take care of the basketball. And there's been some, hiccups here and there, some miscommunication or, whatever it is, but that's, 19 assists to 8 turnovers. This is winning basketball in this league. But here's the other one. Here's the one I want to point out because this is massive to me. And again, this is in back-to-back games now, but this one is more impressive than the previous one, in my opinion. The rebounding numbers, plus 16 on the glass. Okay. It is well established that you are not a good rebounding team. Grant has talked repeatedly. We get a little time to work on things. We got to work on rebounding. Our team has to rebound better. We must rebound better. If we don't rebound better, we will lose. I mean, you've heard it every phrase, all different kinds of ways. And at times it's just like, man, we don't have to be a great rebounding team. We just need to kind of compete on the glass. We just can't lose this battle. Let's just even, kind of an even match right there, or close to it. But I mean, plus 16 against the Jayhawks, but even digging in a little deeper, 52 shots go up for the Jayhawks, 52. And they were able to rebound 4 of their own misses. That's it. I mean, 4 offensive rebounds. I mean, again, Darrion, Robert, Kerwin, Warren, everybody contributed here. Your guards with putting a body on somebody and being more physical and just simply wanting it more. But that's and that like defensively, last couple of games, but rebounding as well has really been fascinating because you hadn't been great on defense, you hadn't been good on the glass, and all of a sudden now it's like, okay, you start talking about different ways to win games and all that. Can it be sustained? Can you do it away from your building? I don't know, but we've seen it in back-to-back games against 2 pretty good teams. So I don't know. I think, low assists, and then all of a sudden you're competing your tail off on the glass, man. Pretty fun little recipe.
Yeah, and you talk about, hey, we're going to work on rebounding, and I'm just wondering, how the hell do you do that? You tell the guys to go home and grow, or like, hey, let's get some longer arms. But however they've done it, it's been improved. There's no doubt. And clearly a 16 rebound margin. I don't know if that's something that we're going to be expecting from game to game, but your margin for error as a team will grow tremendously if you're able to do anything like that, or just compete a little bit better or win some of those matchups on the glass. Because I think there are plenty of times this season where it's like, if we're just within like a handful, 2, 3, 4, 5 rebounds, probably got a chance to compete in the game and maybe have a chance to win. But yeah, my imagination was not taking me to a place where Texas Tech was going to be winning many rebounding battles, much less to the tune, again, of a margin of 16. As far as a guy that is a primary contributor within this effort, Warren Washington, who I thought gave you a really gutsy effort, knew he got banged up a little bit. Probably still too early to kind of tell maybe what the week is going to hold for him, or what it could hold whenever you go to Ames, Iowa coming up this weekend. I guess maybe the silver lining is you play a Monday night ball game, so you got some days in between this difficult road trip coming up. But what was some of the initial vibe around Warren Washington and any potential lingering injury?
I'm worried about it. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess I'm prepared for, you could get some bad news here, but I just don't know. I think they were, Grant, when I asked him about it in the post-game interview last night, he was, I don't know a whole lot. I think there's probably some x-rays being done last night or this morning. I don't know, I'll just tell you what, this is why I'm worried, because whatever happened, he right in front of us at the scores table, you could just see him say, I felt something pop. And so I'm like, okay, that I'm gonna chalk that up as not being a good feeling that something popped. So he goes over, gets checked out, and I'm thinking like, uh-oh. And then the game is there's still plenty of time left in this game. But he would then come back in, and they're not going to let him, hurt it any worse, or is there, but then he couldn't finish. He had to take himself out. He couldn't sustain it. You could just tell, is it foot? Was it like a toe? Was it, I don't know. But I will tell you, until somebody tells me, hey man, false alarm, he's good, I'm gonna be worried about it. And he's just, Cowan, I'm stating the obvious here. You can't lose him. So I don't know. I don't know if this was just hey, everything's okay. We're gonna shut him down for a day or two, and he'll be back on Saturday. Or is this long term? Like, we just lost him for the year, or is there somewhere in between? I don't know, but I would tell you that based on his verbiage, because he said this repeatedly to people that were around him and I'm not a great lip reader, but I could tell what he was saying, and I don't know like exactly what the issue was. And Mike Neal will get him try to get him up, so we'll just kind of see what they say. But yeah, we can't have nice things, I guess. I don't know, but maybe you get some good news here, and it's just no big deal, and I'd be all for that. But yeah, I'm a worrier by nature, but when I see somebody saying I felt something pop, I'm like, yeah, okay, you got some reason to worry here. That's not good.
Well, particularly whenever it comes to that specific individual, because the depth there, obviously, in the front court is razor thin or non-existent.
Yeah, you're Robert Jennings and Kyron Lindsey and EY, but this is what you're gonna. So I don't know, but maybe we'll get some clarification on that as the week goes along. You're right. You've got some extra days here, which I think is a positive. And I don't know if Grant will meet with the media. He doesn't have a coach's show this week. He's done with those, so he won't meet with the media until maybe like a Thursday, maybe before that Iowa State game, before we leave early Friday morning to Ames. So may not know anything until then publicly. I'm not real sure, but yeah, my thoughts are with. I hope that he's okay. By the way, speaking of Warren, we we have a listener from his family. His dad found me after the game on Saturday, listens to us, made sure to say hello to me. So, Mr. Washington, yeah, I appreciate you saying something. We are thinking about your kid. He's been a great addition, and hope everything's okay. Hope false alarm. Hope everything's okay. But want to make sure that I said hello to you, sir.
Yeah, what's good, Mr. Washington? And I'm over here like Dave Chappelle scratching my neck. You got any more of them sons, Mr. Washington? I want to send out to the LBK because Warren's been a tremendous addition and a tough dude. I mean, he's trying to gut it out. So you got to credit him for that. And hopefully some good news is going to be coming down the pipe. All right, it is Iowa State on the road coming up next, fitting the description of the next potential victim. We got time to set the table for that. Also going to check in on tomorrow's episode with an offensive line coach hunt. Hadn't got to that conversation in a few days, so we'll see what's going down. Anything new on that radar, so make sure you're back for the next episode. Get subscribed if you're not, so you never miss one. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Keep hope alive, and keep your fingers crossed out there for Mr. Washington. We can't lose the big fella, so we'll see what we get. But man, enjoyed it. These are fun. These are rare. Watching some history for various different reasons, man, and that was a big time dub for you, and that will pay some dividends for your sweet little resume there going forward. So, with that, keep hope alive, everybody. Enjoy your Tuesday, Cowan. I will talk to you in the morning. Yes, sir. We appreciate you guys being out there and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.